there, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about Voyage of Time, the Terrence Malick film. You can see in two different versions. One's a life's journey, which is a feature-length version narrated by Kate Blanchett, and there's also the IMAX version narrated by Brad Pitt, where it's obviously with a big screen. The Brad Pitt version is 45 minutes, and the Blanchett version, Life's Journey, is an hour 30. So there's two different films, but they're the same film in some ways, but different in other ways. So basically, I watched both these versions over the last month. I separated them a bit so that I could, because there's going to be a lot of repeating since it's the same film but different. I should say that I do have a much bigger preference for the longer version, the one with Kate Blanchett. Firstly, I think Kate Blanchett actually works a lot better. Her voice works better with this narrative. I think the Brad Pitt's voice doesn't work so well with the IMAX version. I think it should have just been Kate Blanchett, but I think you've tried to differentiate between the two versions, so you do them two different actors doing it, but I think one was much superior to the other. Also, I think the IMAX version has its own strengths, but you do get a feel when it's fast forwarding through some of the stuff, really in a way that the longer version can stretch it out and let scenes flow more, and you get a feeling of it's less on point and get to one section to the next section to the next section. And for me, it was actually a more enjoyable experience. I watched both of them projected, so that I wanted to make sure I could see them both on the big screen as much as possible. So I saw through Mubi, I saw the IMAX version, and obviously I've got the Blu-ray for the French Blu-ray for the Life's Journey version, and the Blu-ray looks gorgeous. It really does. It's a really beautiful transfer. So the strength, I would say, of the IMAX version is because both versions are looking at the scientific elements of the universe expanding and the universe developing and how life came about. And the preoccupation of the IMAX version is mixing that with faith. And the idea basically is that this is a miracle, and it's just about the kind of fragility of life and the faith in how humanity's formed from that. So the faith element, which comes in a lot with Malick, feels more prominent in that version, and it's shorter because everything's locked down quicker from A to B to C to D, and the actual difference between the science of it and the guiding hand of something to try and get us to something to expand deep through the universe to do something great is much more. Is it faith, or is it just human nature, or the way the universe is evolving, creating something beautiful from it, even despite our problems, does feel more prominent in that version. There is a sense of divine inspiration you get from the feeling from the way it flows in the IMAX version. That in the longer version, I think it feels slightly different. The longer version, Life's Journey, I feel it's much more of how difficult life is from any time anyone could be alive, from beginning the universe and all the troubles to get to the point where we are alive, and how troubled people even now can be, and how much of a miracle life is ultimately. It feels it feels less hopeful, but also feels deeper about the problems we face in life, and it feels the problems we've got surviving despite the miracles of everything that got us to here. It feels much more about the difficulties. I mean, in some ways I'd say it feels linked to the Javier Bardem sequences Into the Wonder, where he's a priest trying to help people out, and it's like, how do you have faith within such a flawed system, a flawed, difficult system of life? That feels to infuse this one more, while the shorter version feels much more Malick talking about the beauty of the universe, the beauty of life, and how it's more the faith we're going to keep going, how wonderful it is. Here it feels much more like it's a more difficult process for people. It's more difficult to get from through each element of life, which I liked more. I felt it was deeper and more interesting. But both of them are great. Just I like that one better. Plus Blanchette's voice just fit better. She's calmer, and you get a sense of her voice come through the different various sections. Just seems a really good mix in a way that Pitt's voice I don't think quite works as well. But here you actually can get a sense in the longer version, the life's journey of it just feels more gradual from getting from each point from the Big Bang and the gases forming to planets, and the planets forming through the volcanic eruptions to start to solidify, and you get water and you get life, and slowly how it evolves. And they're cutting that with how we are now and shots of us in life. Very brief shots of how difficult life is for us in modern day, then going back to seeing how it evolved, going towards that. Everything feels like it's kicked in, so you can actually enjoy each section and relax with each section and sense of a gradual progression of each section of life and how life evolved and how the difficulties where the comet coming destroying the dinosaurs. So you get some dinosaurs, but everything feels much more in place in the longer version. It feels like you have a chance to breathe. The short version, it feels you're jumping quicker. The longer version, it feels more gradual and you can just enjoy it. And you can sit back and relax watching it in a lot of ways, really. And the longer version just feels like it was more relaxing to watch. It was more beautiful to see different scenes and different elements floating through, and there was little bits and bobs of things they took out probably for time in the longer version that feel much more needed just to weigh down the film. The film just feels more weighed down by the details you need just to connect everything. It just feels much more of a piece. Really, it feels much more. It feels deeper, and it's also means it gives you a chance to appreciate each moment of how difficult each moment was. So you get all these wonderful shots of volcano. You get shots of volcano going from like the hot molten, how the rocks are forming. With shots of that, you just get shots of lava flowing below the surface as continents are formed. Basically, you get a sense of the different planets in space and how each one is how it's forming. You get a sense of the different lives that even took up towards the dinosaurs and it dying, and then you get the caveman and watching the cavemen having to develop from, as they're developing emotions to fight each other, as they're developing understanding of family, understanding of how to connect, how to build homes, and then it cuts from basic homes to our homes in this new century with all these cities. So it shows you a sense of our progression slowly. You can say, it's like 2001, but it doesn't feel like 2001. 2001 feels like a different thing. This feels much more organised to be. There's no plot of the monolith. It's just like this is just nature how it's slowly evolved. There's no direction. This is just the way nature moves forward. It's always slowly evolving. It takes its time, and we're here for a little bit of it. And it's just like the slow progression to modern life, and what does modern life mean ultimately? Because it's still full of confusion and difficulty, and where does that leave us as people? Like, where does it leave us as how do we find logic within the expansion of the universe, logic within our meaning in the universe? It's much more. It feels more difficult in this one. It feels much more like the progression is more beautiful because you have an expansion of the universe and the voice slowly going through it, and the sense of wonder for each little moment. But also we get to the modern times where things are difficult, things are confusing. And it's like, was this as far as we're going to go, or are we going to go further? There's a sense of faith in we'll go further, but it's much more damaged by life. It's much more a feeling of that life's difficult. But I mean, it's one of those things. There's only so much you can see with this because you have to experience it. You really have to experience it. The biggest screen possible, and just sit back and relax because you're in for a beautiful experience. I mean, you got a little bit of in Tree of Life, but that was kind of minor compared to what you get here. Here's like the full thing, and you do get a sense that this is a passion project. It took years to make. The effects look beautiful. They're not trying to be like Jurassic Park or the latest big film. They're actually just trying to be kind of very National Geographic in a sense of this is an interpretation of things. This is not trying to be. It's a cut in between special effects of trying to be natural as possible and just locations that you can see on Earth. In a sense of the beauty of Earth and a sense of how hard it was to get there and how they're not trying to be slick with the effects. The effects are meant to fit in with the rest of the landscapes. And it works beautifully. It's really a beautiful film. Highly recommended. The only downside is you might, if you watch both like I did, fairly close together, your mind does kind of wander a little bit in the longer version because you've seen it already and it's so beautiful your mind just starts to go with the imagery rather than been focusing on what Malick's trying to focus on. He's just like, this feels fairly trippy now. It's just nature. But that's because I was watching both in the same month, basically. So that's on me more than the film. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope this gets you to go watch the film. Because the film is, either version is beautiful. You can get the short version on Mubi just now. I'd highly recommend that. The longer version is the better version, which is Life's Journey. You can get that in French Blu-ray or whatever Blu-ray you can find. Definitely highly recommend getting it because it is a beautiful film. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with another one. That's me for now. Bye.